captivated. I'm just captivated. Captivated. So tonight I'm going to do something I don't usually do. Where am I? I'm going to do something I don't usually do. It's March 23rd, 2021. I'm doing an abbreviated show, but I'm not doing a shallow show. I'm doing the deal, man. I'm doing the deal. I'm going to talk about gun control for a minute. I try not to talk about it. I'll tell you why I try not to talk about it. It's controversial, number one. Yeah, that's not a surprise. Number two, I don't like being in the center of that controversy. Hi, Lisa. That's a controversy I've really ducked left and right over my lifetime, sometimes to stay out of, and other times I embraced it. Hello, Kathy. So, but how do I not talk about gun control? First off, I'm going to talk about it because I'm in a unique position to discuss it. There's very few liberals with a gun, apparently. I hear about them. I don't see them. So I don't know that they really exist. But anyways, it's not just that I'm a liberal with a gun. I used to own the gun range. I'm a firearms instructor. I was a licensed firearm instructor in the state of Texas. I was a concealed handgun license instructor. I was a I'm sorry, it's very loud. I was a concealed handgun license instructor one time. I was a security guard instructor, what they call Texas Commission on Private Security, and I was a T-close instructor, which is a law enforcement firearms instructor. So I've been all three at one time. And like I said, I own the gun range, and I'm a lawyer, and I've done gun cases, and I've studied the Constitution. I think I've made my bones on this topic. I think I can talk about it. So anyways, we're on YouTube. Kathy, we're on. Anyways, I better not try to follow that train. So I published a blog. I hope people will read it. Some of you did. I hope you will all read it. I don't know. There's the blog link. It's in my Facebook thing. I don't know how much traction any one person can get unless they're, really significant. The president, with all respect, he's calling for, gun control. He's calling for banning. You got to approach this judiciously. And I don't know that starting out your day by talking about banning firearms of any sort is a winning argument. But assuming that it's let's say the majority of the majority of the citizens favor some sort of ban on certain firearms, like the AR-15. But you have, it's one of the most popular firearms ever. It was Colt. Colt made millions of them. It was made for the military. I've talked about this a long time ago. And it's a military weapon that was modified for civilian use. So when people tell you it's not a military weapon, they're full of shit and they don't know. But I hear it all the time. I hear it from people in the gun community. It's no different than a hunting gun. Well, actually, it is different than a hunting gun, and it wasn't designed to be a hunting gun. So, when we talk about gun control, I always talk about universal background checks. But there's something more significant. You regulate who's going to get a gun. Sometimes the wrong people will get a gun. Can't avoid that. But you want the wrong person to have a handgun and not an AR-15, and I'm going to explain why. Because when somebody shoots you with an AR-15, it's much deadlier than a handgun round. It's a rifle round. It's a bigger round, more powerful round, faster round. It's gonna go It's gonna do you a lot of damage, right? So will a handgun, but the chances of survival uh, from being shot with a handgun are infinitely better than being shot with an AR-15. Plus, an AR-15 is much more accurate than a handgun. The longer a barrel on a firearm, the more accurate it is because it's got the velocity building up as it goes down the barrel. So if the barrel's this long, the bullet comes out, it had that long to get itself, wound, so to speak, because it's spinning. If it goes through a barrel that length, I can't see myself because this is backwards. Anyways, then it's got that much time. And a rifle, anyways, you'll have to bear with me. A rifle's at least 16 inches long. The barrel is at least 16 inches long by law. And so by the time it comes out, for instance, my average handgun is 3 to 4 inch barrel. So a rifle like an AR-15 is at least 4 times longer, which means it's far more accurate and far more velocity, far more potential damage, right? An idiot can be accurate because when you shoot a gun, the longer the barrel, the less deviation from the target. When you shoot a handgun, if you don't sight it accurately, very accurately, you're going to be off very quickly. Because of the short barrel, it'll begin to demonstrate itself very quickly as it approaches the target and deviates. With a rifle, you can be off a little bit and still hit the shit out of what you're looking at. So rifles they're just inherently more dangerous, period. They're inherently more deadly or more accurate. And so we need to have a national conversation about guns. We need to have a mandate that whoever buys a gun, if they don't already have some sort of certification, such as a concealed license where they've submitted their fingerprints and they've submitted to a background check and everything, in the absence of that, if it's just a guy on the street buying and all he's got is a driver's license, then everybody should be subjected to a universal background check. Is that enough? We don't do that. Is that enough? No. Will the waiting period help? Let's find out. California's got one. Illinois' got one. Texas, if you've got your license or you get your FBI check and it's instantaneous, you get the gun instantaneously. Now, that works about 99% of the time because most people buying guns are legitimate acquirers of a gun. They're legally entitled to possess a firearm. I'm setting that argument aside. What we're talking about is the potential for somebody who is prohibited by law, and primarily who's prohibited people who committed crimes previously, or people who, and we don't even have this should be people that are identified as a security risk. Now, I understand the difficulty of having that discussion. There's people that, well, you can't trust the government. Look at the no-fly list. There's people on no-fly list that don't belong on there. It's a problem. Letting government decide anything is a problem. But I'm not willing to abdicate any responsibility for gun limitations just because we can blame the government for being ineffective. Demand government be more effective. Don't demand that government do nothing. So I wrote a blog. I posted it. I hope you look at it. Thank you, Kathy. Hi, Debbie. I have a lot of friends that have AR-15s. I used to have an AR-15. I sold it. I bought something better than an AR-15 as far as what I call a tactical rifle. That is a rifle that's intended for personal protection, self-defense, or a military type application. It wasn't designed to go chase animals. It's not designed to shoot a deer or anything like that. It's not a hunting rifle. Somebody may hunt with it, but it's not a hunting rifle. So I had an AR-15, then I bought a gun that's probably twice the price of the average AR-15, really fine Belgium-made tactical rifle. I never shot it. I finally sold it. I also own an AK-47, a very deadly rifle when used properly. That's a Russian-designed rifle, military rifle. I also own an SKS, another Russian-designed rifle, military rifle. And then I have some two other rifles that have no application for military. They were never intended for military. One's a lever action. You see that in the movies. The other one's just a 22, say what they call plinking gun. You just plink, you shoot at cans and stuff. You could shoot at something. You shoot at squirrels or something. I never shoot it. I never shoot at animals. So, but I'm reaching the point now. I think we should all sit down. Certainly, gun owners should be sitting down because they should want to be at the table where the decisions about limitations, restrictions, regulations may apply. Unfortunately, what has happened is the National Rifle Association has been the person sitting at the table, and they simply buy politicians and they buy negative policy. And so real gun owners, instead of being at the table, are contributing their money to the NRA, and the NRA is using it to buy politicians and to buy advertising and to lobby. The gun lobby is far more effective than the anti-gun lobby. It's got more money and it's got more sway because the South loves its guns. Did I buy those rifles as a collector? I guess, yeah, for the most part. I mean, I don't have a war to go to. I don't have urban warfare. I don't have, yeah. I thought they would be fun to own, but I never shot any of them. I shot my 22. I've never shot my lever action. I never shot my other guns. They've just been sitting in the safe until I can sell them. All my handguns, I have a small collection of handguns now. I used to have a larger collection because I owned the gun range at one time. And I sold off most of my handguns to legitimate buyers. And I kept some. I have two handguns, which I use for home protection. A handgun is all you need for home protection. Don't listen to these jerks that tell you got to have a shotgun. You know, a handgun to protect your house just fine. And then I have a couple of handguns that I kind of switch off for personal protection carry when I leave the house. So I only own handguns for practical use, Kathy. So yes. I guess the answer is my rifle collection. Well, I also have your brother's rifles. I bought those. So back to my story. My story. I only have a few more minutes. I want to get into this subject more. I hope that some of you will read my blog and think about what I'm trying to say and critique it. You know, I sent this out as if my friends who own guns may still read anything I write. The truth is, I have no reason to believe that my friends in the gun world pay any attention to anything that I write. Sometimes when I wrote something anti-Trump, I got some pushback, but really, when it comes to guns, I don't get any pushback on this, even though I've been into gun control now for a couple of years. And I say gun control and the anti-gun industry, or whatever you want to call them, the gun control, doesn't like to use that. Gabrielle Gifford, who was shot in the head by a crazy guy, she likes to call her lobbying gun safety. Everybody's got the little thing. I'm okay with gun control because we need to put some controls on guns and gun owners. We don't have mandated safety laws in many cases. That is, if you're not in possession of the gun, where can it be? If you live alone and you don't have a minor in the house, you can put the gun in your drawer, you can put it on top of your dresser, you can do what you want with it. Because the law only requires you protect your gun from a minor, but who's protecting it from burglars? So if you don't have a secure location for your firearm and it's sitting out and somebody breaks your house, boom, bang. Or you leave it in the car while you go inside, boom, bang, they got it. lots and lots of guns are stolen every year, primarily from people who aren't holding them. It's very hard to take a gun from somebody. I've been carrying since 1993. Nobody's ever managed to take a gun from my person, and I carry a lot. So we need to have legitimate gun owner representation at the table, but we need gun owner representation that is committed to the proposition one. There is a flurry of gun violence that's been going on in this country for too long. That gun ownership can be respected but must be regulated. And three, is willing to compromise in the name of public safety, health, safety, and welfare. I wrote earlier today just on Facebook, people that are tenaciously clinging to their guns and the notion that they're protecting themselves. Well, I can't argue that. I feel that way, but I'm willing to compromise. The people that are tenaciously claiming they have all rights, inalienable rights to a gun, are, besides being wrong, they're standing on this ground which is not soaked in the blood. The blood is being soaked into the fabric of people who aren't armed, and then they say, well, you need good guys with guns. Well, there was a good guy with a gun showed up at the grocery store yesterday and got shot immediately. Okay, he was a police officer. He got there, he had a gun, didn't help. You could add a couple people with guns. Who's going to sit outside the first grade classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary School waiting for some guy to come in and shoot over 20 children? I mean, when you see, I get our resistance as gun owners to being regulated. Every industry I've ever been in, when regulations were proposed, those of us in the vanguard always said, fine, if you're going to regulate us, let us sit at the table. Let us help you design sensible regulations. To be honest, thoroughly, completely, fully honest, okay? There is no discussion amongst gun owners about moving towards any reasonable limitations. I don't have any friends who own guns who are willing to discuss with me what they would consider reasonable limitations. What I get, the closest I get is, Ken, some of your suggestions are good, but I wouldn't vote for those because it's a slippery slope, and if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And people like Feinstein and Boxer and Pelosi and a lot of them have made crazy statements about taking people's guns away, fueling donations to the NRA. So there's so much work to be done. But I don't think that, I have guns. My guns are designed to protect me and family. Had I, over the last several years, many years, 40 years, 30 something, whatever, had I been killed because I didn't have a gun, but in exchange, no child at Sandy Hook would have been harmed, I think I'd have to go with, well, my bad luck. In other words, I'm more than happy to protect myself and my loved ones, but at some point I'm willing to concede that there may be a greater good, and that despite the saying that if you're willing to sacrifice your rights for liberty, you deserve neither liberty nor your security. I used to think maybe that was true. I don't agree. I think that there are absolutely a need for compromises. That's the nature of community. That's the nature of society. None of us are living in a bubble. Everybody here is interacting with others. Everybody here has to go to a grocery store at one time. Everybody here, whoever had a child, had that child go to the first grade classroom. Everybody here probably has been to a live concert venue like Las Vegas, where a guy sat up in the hotel and shot, hundreds of people, injured thousands. So every one of us is vulnerable to the insanity of wanton gun use. And so, what should we do? I'm simply saying, I don't know for sure what we should do, but we ought to do something. We ought to try stuff. People say, well, Ken, universal background checks won't work. Well, how do you know that? We've never had it. So why would you state that as a fact? You could say, I don't think it would, and then I would say, I think you may be right. Maybe it won't do anything. Tell you what, let's try it. See if it helps. Let's try something. Let's do something. Most of the mass shootings, shouldn't family or friends have noticed some kind of mental states that could have been reported to the authorities? That's a real controversial topic, Kathy. Sometimes people say they could have guessed he was deteriorating. It's usually a he. Others say guy was normal till they shot everybody. So I don't think there's anything definitive about what anybody should notice. Can I keep one handgun just for protection? It would be hard to convince me to give up all my handguns. But again, Debbie, as I've said, most of the carnage, the bigger carnage, comes from rifles. Now we've got a secondary issue that needs to be addressed with universal background checks and all that, and safe storage rules, laws, and that is gang violence. Gang violence is primarily handgun violence, and that's because these guys are out in the streets and they're carrying guns, and when that needs to be addressed as one, eliminating the war we have on drugs and legalizing them so that the gangs lose that incentive to shoot each other over territory, drug territory. We need to address the issue of poverty. We need to address the issue of mental health. That's handgun limitations. Rifle limitations, I think, is a different beast. And people are afraid to say anything because the NRA is very powerful. Politicians don't want to be up against it. But you know what? It's too late. It's, the years passed. Everything's impermanent. The Buddha said everything's impermanent, including your perception of your right to own guns willy-nilly. Debbie wants one for personal protection. If I'm king of the world, I'm going to grant that. I'm going to grant myself the right to carry a firearm. I can defend my house and my home with a handgun. I can do that. I don't care what you say. Well, what if they come in with a shotgun? What are they going to? You come in my house, I got a handgun. You better be you got to be super slick, or that's the ground upon which you will die on, right? So I guess I'm easy to put down rifles because I don't use them. So when it comes to personal protection, I don't have the admiration of a shotgun or a rifle that some people do, and I believe it's a misplaced admiration. When it comes to hunting, there are hunting rifles, and there are different beasts from a tactical rifle in most cases. Okay? They're just a different beast. They don't carry a quantity of rounds. They're not designed to add on all kinds of tactical gear. Lasers and flashlights, and you should see all this stuff people buy for their AR-15s. Good guys who just want to have a cool firearm. But a lot of these AR-15s at some point get stolen, and guess where they end up? All right, it's 6:24, and I've got to go to the Wind concert today downtown at the Meyerson Symphony Hall. That starts in about an hour, and I really don't even know how to get there. I've been there, but somebody else always drove, I think. So I'm going to go, and I appreciate anybody that tuned in. And if you tune in later, please, you'll see the link to the blog. I encourage people. I guess I'm really interested in whether I'm just, what is the point of writing about it? What is the point of encouraging people and trying to stimulate their ideas about gun control, right? I don't know that there's a point to it, but you'll give me some feedback. You'll say, you made a good point, but something like that. Anyways, I gotta go. I'm not even gonna do meta tonight because I gotta go. But I will say this before I go. May all living beings be safe from harm. May all living beings be safe from violence of any sort, armed violence, any sort of brutality. May all living beings be safe in their home and in their community. May all living beings, humans and non-humans, know what it is to sleep soundly, safely, in the hands of some greater force. Satu, Satu, Satu. See y'all tomorrow if you come back. Thanks, Mark and Ann and Debbie and Rachel and Kathy and Rachel, I said Kathy. Who else? I'm quickly looking through. Lisa. All right. Y'all be cool. Stay out of trouble. Be careful with my heart.